Alright, jumping back in real quick here. The next round was up super fast. So we've already actually gotten started. We got DragonJonz on the right side with red, blue, so Ruby Sapphire. Josh Karsten with Sapphire Steel. We actually, player one was DragonJonz here. They actually went first, led off with the ice block, and then Tipo into Flabbersham, where it was Popsicle into Smee from Sapphire Steel. So that catches us all up here for the most part. And now we are on turn 3 for the Sapphire Steel player. We're going to see what the follow-up is. The sort of item into Tipo into Flabbersham line is pretty rough to combat from the other side here. So that's generally the worst outcome that you can generally see when you're playing Sapphire Steel into this matchup specifically. They opt for a Fishbone Quill to get some ramp going here into another Popsicle. So if they've got a Flabbersham of their own, this can definitely lead into some pretty fast ramping. Looks like they just use Smee to challenge Tipo, take that out. Smee will get 1 damage here and send it right back. Alright, so now the Smee's got 2 damage because of the end of turn trigger, because it is tapped. And then now we're on to turn 4 for DragonJonz here with Ruby Sapphire. So now we're getting into the point of the game where some of the bigger characters can start coming down already. See Maui here. Maui taking out Smee. Flabbersham just questing for 1. Get a little bit of lore in while we can. It's kind of free here, especially in this matchup. There's no, big Mauis or anything on the other side that are really going to threaten the 1/6 Flabbersham. May as well get the lore in while you can. And they do have the Flabbersham, so I'm going to use this to try and draw some cards. It's pretty likely to get taken out after getting played, especially in the Sapphire Ruby style of decks. They get Brawl, they've got the human Sisu a lot of times, the big Sisu. All these characters can sort of bully the Flabbersham pretty easily, so it often only gets one item popped to draw those 2 cards, but generally you still have to play it anyway, given that, you need to get some cards out of it. I don't know if they're playing a whole new world yet, we'll find out, but if they are, usually you don't mind just getting a little bit of cards, use them for ink, and then sort of continue on from there.
This is an interesting matchup, just coming back from setting up our cameras for the interview, but goodness, a Sapphire Steel versus Ruby Sapphire. This looks like a tough match to be in for, at least in my mind, the Sapphire Steel player. Once you're both ramping, you're both trying to see where you get to at the end game, but who can get that, Tamato out and use Dime? We know that Ruby Sapphire does it great, and they still have answers for bigger characters, whereas Sapphire Steel may not.
So maybe not my favorite sequencing ever, but I don't think it really matters a ton. Usually you want to work with the most information possible with how far you'll go first before you play the things, but I don't really feel like there's many lines other than playing the human Sisu to take out that Flav anyway, so we'll give him a little bit of a pass here. But Maui being able to sing how far I'll go, allowing us to really play multiple spells in a turn, even though that we haven't played a Popsicle at all to go with this Flav, it's still been able to break several items at this point, and that's a really bad spot for the Sapphire Steel player to be in. You don't want your opponent on Ruby Sapphire to really be ahead of you at all, especially if you have a Fishbone Quill in play. And they're even on ink for the most part, and it can get out of control pretty easily, because the end game stuff for Ruby Sapphire are definitely a lot stronger than what Sapphire Steel is presenting a lot of times. Even though they do look very similar towards the end anyway. Dimes and crabs, of course. Another Flabbersham. Makes sense with the Fishbone Quill run out then to just sort of play these items and try and convert those extra cards into resources and then convert those into 2 or 3 spells per turn. That's sort of the blue steel method of competing in these spaces, is to just do 2 or 3 or 4 things in a turn to your opponent's 1, maybe 2, because then you're just always able to turn those cards directly into tempo, which can be very important when you're, a lot of your cards are kind of middling on their own. So another hand CC drawn off the top, likely going to be used to take out this second Flaversham again. We decide to shrink something with the Sisu. Shrinking the Calhoun. Oh, there was a shift Sisu. Okay, that's even better than the hand Sisu, certainly.
That's a great shift line right there, really to take out. Wow.
Leveraging that ice block to make the Smee into 2 strength instead of 3, allowing it to be hit with the trigger from the big Sisu is a bit of a beating. Now, trying to decide if we actually want to draw cards or not here, I think it makes sense to just draw the cards, especially if your hand isn't particularly exciting. I know that there's a Tamatoa in there, so it's likely that we're just looking to get more ink, so that we can actually play the cards that we already have access to. It looks like there's a Lucky Dime and a Tamatoa in hand, so I can understand what the plan already is just to do the stuff that's already in hand, and then win with that. The second How Far I'll Go being sung with the Sisu, this is a secondary bonus to actually doing the shift line here, because now we're able to also, gain value from the How Far I'll Go. We inked the queen that we drew, so that should put us up to 8, I believe, which is what we need to start playing these crabs. Ideally, we go to 9, because then that'll allow us to play a crab, and then also follow up with whatever item we pull out of the discard, which now we have the ability to do pretty easily. So this game is looking to be pretty in favor, I would say, of the blue-red player, which is not that uncommon in this matchup, especially when they're on the play, with as powerful of a draw as they had. So Smee decides to take out the Flaversham, not a big surprise there, but a tough spot to be in, given that the big Sisu is still alive. Looks like there's even another one in hand, which is a little awkward right now because there's nothing to hit with it in particular. Everything is very large.
Even this big Sisu just being a great target for Dime. I mean, it's going to get you 3-6 in 1 turn if you quest with it, but decides to run out the Tamatoa, can get back an item back from his discard pile. I don't think I've seen a Popsicle on that side.
There has not been a Popsicle, but Tamatoa does have plenty of reasonable targets. We got rid of the Maui Shark, so it does make the Vitalosphere a little less valuable, but we only really have Vitalospheres and Ice Blocks, so given that in theory the Vitalosphere has more modes on it than just slightly shrink one of these monsters on the other side, I think it makes sense to go ahead and go with that one. And then we're just going to quest out with our Sisu to gain 3, go to 7. That makes the Dime a little bit scarier then as well, because it just gets us that much closer to the 20 that we're working with. So our opponent having Chenpo, which can effectively eat this Sisu, which is likely what it's going to do, is just quest or challenge in and take it out. But then we still have this Tamatoa to contend with. There's not a lot of cards that 1-for-1 with Tamatoa out of Blue Steel. As somebody who's played a lot of Blue Steel over the last, however many months, it's basically just Let It Go that does not even see play in that large of quantities anymore. They decide to go with Cogsworth, which in this case is interesting because it lets the Smee continue to quest, because it won't take any damage at the end of turn. So it will be alive, which is valuable, certainly. Debating what we're doing with this Fishbone Quill here.
And still 0 to 7. Scary place to be in when you see the ink that is in DragonJonz Inkwell. And the character's on board with a Lucky Dime. They doesn't know that's in hand, but most certainly you imagine is going to come down eventually with this type of a list.
So in theory, running out the Pete to protect from Be Prepared does end up challenging the Sisu, which makes sense. And now we're sitting at 2 to 7 with a Tamatoa in play and a Vitalosphere. So immediately Ink Sail, we don't necessarily need it, and our hand is pretty stacked already. So the cycling of draw one card doesn't necessarily make sense. We'd just rather have the ink to work with here. So we're gonna have to quest first for that, but that makes sense.
Oh, he's got another big Sisu in hand, making this ice block that much more effective.
So we get the ice block. My assumption is that we're going to ice block something and then play out the big Sisu, kind of like we did before, but this time it'll take out Cogsworth and something. So we shrink this to me again. Basically the same outcome as last time, except this time we get to take out a Cogsworth. And I don't believe that we have enough ink remaining to activate the Vitalosphere, so this is going to be the turn. Now, with just Chenpo and Pete in play, and no cards in hand, this is a rough spot to be. Oh no, we do have an extra ink. So we could Vitalosphere it and take out the Chenpo if we want.
Yeah, not a bad option here.
And we do that. I don't necessarily know if that's super needed. Given that we had the... that they didn't have enough power and no cards in hand. However, this does mean that the Lucky Dime Tamatoa plan that we're already on is pretty much set in stone because they just don't have the ability to fight this. So Lucky Dime off the top, obviously we just play it, which looks a lot worse when all you have is Pete in play and we have a Crab.
Ooh, it has a Popsicle.
And it has a Popsicle. So my guess is we're going to ink something, play the item that we pull out of the discard, and then activate our dime after we quest with Crab, which will gain us 4 from the initial quest right here, put us up to 13, and then we will end up gaining 5, I believe, to put us up to 18, which is a pretty tough spot to be in. And they just scoop it up. That makes sense. The writing's kind of on the wall. They don't have a way with just one card to take out both the Crab and the dime. And being at 18 when they can just play literally any character in their deck, a Cogsworth or something, and dime it is pretty brutal. So we'll pop into our game 2 here with No I'm Not on another slogfest with the blue-red versus... you know, our classic red-purple here. And again, deep into the game, the same way that we would expect, but with double goat in play at 16, it is pretty tough. A Lucky Dime here actually does win the game for Justin, though, I believe.
And this is Kendall, aka No I'm Not's second Sapphire Ruby match to play. He played it during round 3, was able to get the win off of that, and now we're here in round 4 playing another one, but just like you said, Jebas, might be depending on who went first, we'll see, but this could be the game right here.
It looks like a Be Prepared. They don't have the Lucky Dime, so they just have to set them to 18 and send it back and hope that's good enough. And just a raw Medusa for power here. A hard place to be, but, you know, anything that can quest is generally good enough when you're this close. Now, if they're able to quest, you know, if No I'm Not is able to quest with that, go to 19, then it's literally kill every single character that they play for the rest of the game. But on the flip side, Justin appears to have Big Sisu, which does the same thing. If they're able to untap with it, that's the game. So, bit of a nail biter here right at the end. Glad that we got to pop into the last couple turns.
And maybe Ruby Amethyst has a goat.
Oh, look at this card in hand. It's the promo Dragonfires from the DLC.
Wow.
An uncommon card to see in red-purple these days, but it does cleanly take out that Sisu. Now it is up to Justin to sort of throw it back here. They have to deal with this Medusa immediately or the game's over. Couple of redraws with the Flaversham they're debating. They're gonna ice block first. Makes sense. Just in case they draw a Medusa. They draw a dragon. Let's see if they have enough ink for that. It doesn't look like they do.
Man, this is a close game 1 here.
I think that's only 6.
Enough for a Medusa if he drew it, but I don't think he did, or he would have slammed it.
If it was 7 and we had another inkable, we could quill and ink an extra card and then use the dragon, but I think they only have 6 left, or they don't have a second inkable. No, they do have a brawl, so they must only have 6 ink, and they're debating to see if there's anything they got here, and it looks like they don't. So, all right, we will pop back to our match 1, and it looks like Kendall's up a game in that, and we'll see if we have time to check in on him again after our match 1.
What a great game 1 from Kendall over there. He is our 20 Lore Pro, Community Pro for this tournament. All of his matches will be available for you to watch later on our YouTube, 20 Lore Pro YouTube. They will be available all next week for you to watch at your convenience. So don't worry if you missed out on any of Kendall, aka No I'm Not plays. You'll get to see them later on.
All right, just catching us up on this one. It looks like because this is a really rough start for the blue-red players. So it looks like it was turn 1, Popsicle go, Ink pass, and then Smee pass. Then it was Visions into Fishbone Quill, Quest with the Smee, and then it's just hand Sisu doing nothing. So a pretty bad hand from the blue-red player, I would say, if that's our first couple of runouts. Especially given now that we're playing 6-drops already for our Sapphire Steel.
Yeah, Josh here. I mean, exactly.
Jebas. Well, this is going to be a quick game, I suspect. Given such an anemic runout from DragonJonz here, this Ariel is going to be a bit of a bully, I would say. So we had the line of questing with Smee and then healing it with the Popsicle once to make it so that the Sisu doesn't just get to eat it because of that 1 extra damage, but didn't look like that was possible. We did ink Maui Shark so that we could play the How Far I'll Go. Likely just an awkward amount of inkables in hand, so they didn't have exactly the ideal start. But they ramp a little bit to kind of catch up, and then they send it back. They do have some potential outs now to the Ariel, given that they have a little bit more ink. Maui is a good answer, as well as even shifting Big Sisu and just attacking into it. But Ariel can collect the 5 lore here if it wants. So there's a world where that doesn't seem so bad. They could also, it looks like they have Whole New World in hand. They can just sing that with Ariel.
Yeah, not a bad play. Being able to sing it
or just cast it, potentially.
It looks like he's debating on what he wants to do. Revealed it, though.
Well, it depends on, do you think that 5 lore is more important than playing more stuff this turn? And I think it probably is. You just collect the lore while you can, because you can go up to 9. And you still can get up to 3 ink this turn because of the Fishbone Quill and play another thing. So I don't actually hate this play.
I like it especially because he already has so much ink ahead of DragonJonz with his Ruby Sapphire list that, honestly, he may even draw into another Ariel, so...
We drew a Fishbone Quill here, actually. I really quite like... we drew into a Fire the Cannons. I really like Fire the Cannonsing the Sisu to just pull it off the board.
Preventing the shift line.
It prevents the shift line. It just keeps our board a little safer. It also protects the Smee a bit more. Yeah. We do end up Fire the Cannonsing the Sisu, which I think is really, really powerful here. Just limiting what our opponent is able to do with the extra cards that we gave them. I mean, they discarded 6 cards. That's rough. Because we had nothing in our hand. So that's a draw 1 versus a draw 7. That is when Whole New World is at its strongest. And it looks like they didn't draw Maui, so this aerial is going to close the game out in 2 turns here.
That's just what I was thinking. The Maui here would have been kind of a great out for Dragon, but wasn't able to get it off those 7 new cards.
Plays a Tipo. Smee should have an extra damage on it. So we'll make sure that that is corrected. I don't believe that it will matter in this spot, but...
No, I think based on all the aerials, and you see Dragon just kind of counting it up.
Exactly. He looked at his options. They were bad, which we suspected, given that Aerial was already going to put him at basically lethal on board. You know, if they have a lucky dime, it was just over the next turn. A pretty brutal one. That puts them at 1-1, and we will go and check out the other game and see where they're at while they shuffle up for their game 3. And we'll make sure to watch game 3 for this one.
And here's game 2. No, I'm not versus Justin here. Ruby Amethyst versus Sapphire Ruby. Looks like a early start with a Popsicle to a Tipo. And now we have a how far I'll go. That's a quick run of cards.
Looks like they did brawl the Frenemy, so it was a pretty standard run out from No I'm Not here, going, you know, 1 drop into Frenemy into Sisu, but the brawl took it out, which I think is fine. You know, it's not what you would hope for from No I'm Not, but it's pretty predictable from what you would expect on the draw in this matchup. Frenemy certainly at its worst on the draw. Ink's another hand Sisu, probably going to play a Genie or a Rabbit. Yep, draw some cards here. Get in a little bit of lore with the Sisu. You know that it's not going to last long. The Sisu can get taken out with just a numerous amount of things here. So you want to get the lore in while you can, because your characters are not always long for the board.
Justin really doing his best here to ramp to get to those higher value characters in his deck. I think he's going to get there pretty quick because he's got quite a bit. We'll see if he can get there, though, before No I'm Not can establish his board state and gain his lore.
Looks like he's just going for a lot of ramp here. Oh no, sorry, this is a Visions, looking for specific cards. Visions allowing you to look at the top 5, pick your favorite, and put the rest on the bottom. A very powerful card, and really gives this deck a lot of hand control. Couple more drinking something here. Looks like the Sisu. Maybe gonna just brawl it. I believe that it is 1 short without the ice block, but with the ice block, I believe that works. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. -1 is 2, so that'll take it out. Do we want to see if they have gotten ready on match 1 here? I feel like we'll have time to still pop in and catch the end of Kendall's game there.
I agree. These matches between Ruby Sapphire, or Amethyst Ruby and Ruby Sapphire tend to go pretty long.
Perfect timing. Looks like we caught them right as they got started. So,
turn 1 Popsicle from Dragon.
Blue-red on the play again, which is generally pretty good in this matchup, I would say. Pretty good in most matchups, but being the first one to ramp certainly matters a lot more. Both players run out Popsicles, pretty eye-rolly a little bit for the blue decks. Turn 1 Popsicle, big surprise there. Alright, into Tipo. Pretty standard line that's been there since the previous set. Tipo being one of the stronger ramp options available. Inks another card from their hand, just sends it back. So it does allow them to skip turn 3 effectively and go straight to turn 4. They do have a Flaversham, and they also have a Grammatala, so a couple of different choices for how they want to navigate this. If they only have 1 item left, they may play the Gramma. But in this case, given that they're on the play, I would not be surprised to see them run out the Flaversham just to draw 2 cards.
And we do know that Josh is playing Whole New World, but in this case, he's going first. He has the additional ink in his inkwell, so having more options to choose the best cards to play, I think is a great choice, rather than going with the other option in this case.
Yeah, decides to ramp with Explore the Azurite Sea instead of playing something like a Smee. which I think is a shout to them being on the draw as opposed to on the play. They are not able to be as aggressive. They don't need to be as defensive either, because generally red-blue is not the fastest deck in the world. They do close very quickly, but it takes them a minute to get up there. They do end up running out the Flowersham, destroying a couple cards, kind of the way that we predicted. Now the Grammatala will allow you to dig for additional items to be able to continue to draw with the Flowersham. And blue steel doesn't really have a lot of awesome answers to Flowersham, so usually you're able to get 4 cards out of it as long as you have the items. They Fishbone Quill going for ramp, and maybe they're going for the quick aerial that's in hand.
I was about to say, we see Dragon, he just inked a Maui, which would have been a great answer last game for Josh's aerial that helped him win. We'll see what it does this game, being on the draw.
Plays out the Grandma, likely trying to find an item if possible. I don't believe there's an item. It looks like a Maui versus a Brawl, perhaps. Oh no, is that a Pirate's Life? Oh, that's a Pirate's Life.
Oh, it is in his hand.
Pirate's Life is a very good card in combination with Maui Shark, allowing you to sort of push lore, reduce your opponent's lore a little bit. Not necessarily that necessary in this matchup. Especially this early on, it isn't really what you're looking for. The Maui can be pretty good. We're just going to gain 2 lore because our opponent can't really slow us down. Not the fastest clock, but still a clock nonetheless. Send it back. Our opponent's got 5. They can go up to 7 if they want, but given that we know what's in Josh's hand, I would suspect an aerial here, which may or may not be good enough, but they do have the Whole New World, and aerial plus Whole New World is almost guaranteed, not quite 100%, but it's a pretty good chance that they're going to be able to Whole New World if they want. And with the Fishbone Quill versus no Fishbone Quill, that is generally a pretty good way of forcing action in the game. If you're able to play more spells than your opponent with that Whole New World, it generally ends up being a little bit better to cast it.
And Dragon right now, we're seeing his hand. He's got a lot of answers, so if you can Whole New World, especially if you have some great characters on the board, it could help you a lot to get rid of the answers, so that way you don't see them, hopefully, with the new set of hand, but
ends up going with Flowersham to pick up some more cards. It's possible that we didn't have the right kind of inkables in our hand for us to want to get rid of them. Obviously, it looks like there's a lucky dime in the hand as well as the Whole New World, so it's possible that we didn't want to lose that dime to be able to get to that point.
yeah, some lists, I think most have gone to 2, but even some back then were running 1, and so it could be brutal to lose your 1 dime.
Yeah, absolutely. The crab can get it back if you Whole New World it, but if you do hit it with the Fishbone Quill, it's just gone. We lose it with a Medusa here, so Flowersham got to draw the 2 cards that you would expect it to in this matchup, and no more. Generally, blue steel versus blue red, that is kind of the way that Flowersham works, is it really only gets that 1 activation, and then it gets taken out with basically every removal spell in the Ruby Players deck.
Yeah, we see Dragon here really doing a great job of just playing character after character that really make a difference, either when they're played or when they quest, and he's doing what Ruby Sapphire does. He's drawing cards, he's going up on ink, he's finding these answers that Josh is right now not having a whole lot against.
Yeah, and this is one of the spots where I think blue-red has a pretty big advantage in this matchup, is they sort of put a bunch of dorks on the board. You know, we got a Flowersham with no items, we got a Grammatala, Tipo, and they've just been questing, and while they don't gain a lot of lore, each individual one is only questing for 1, they've been already able to get up to 6, now they're going to be able to untap for a whole nother turn, go up to 9, 10 with the Medusa. Like, that's already a lot of lore, forcing the, you know, in theory more aggressive or needing to be more aggressive player. I mean, I would think that Sapphire Steel in this matchup has to be the beatdown a lot, because they don't have things like Be Prepared, they don't have these massive haymakers to sort of clean back up the board, and Aerial as a defensive tool is not great. You know, and now we're seeing, if we lose this Tinkerbell, like, this Whole New World looks pretty bad.
Yeah, just getting to untap all of those characters. I mean, Dragon's got a lot of cards in hand that are great. The Maui, the B-Prep, just one after another character are able to just come out here and draw.
Runs out a Popsicle here, which then we're going to be able to use with the Flaversham. Go to 7, draw 2 more cards. Looks like we picked up a Tipo and another Explore the Azurite Sea, and likely just going to ramp a little bit more to make sure that if they do Whole New World, that it does not have as large of an impact, which I actually think is a pretty good line. It keeps us at pretty good pace with the Fishbone Quill. Likely another Grammatal that we've been holding in hand for a while.
Yeah, just rid of camera.
Interestingly, we got rid of the Flaversham. I suppose we don't need another one when we can just ramp an additional time, this time by singing How Far I'll Go. And now, while we are not pushing lore the same way that we could have, we're only really costing ourselves 1 lore to gain more cards in hand, more ink in play. Like, we've now at least kept up with this Fishbone Quill, which is sort of a key, because now, like, what's our best case here? We, as the blue steel player, are able to kind of clean up the board a little bit, but then we untap and we basically just have this Tinkerbell and not a lot else, versus, you know, a blue-red player with a ton of ink, a decent grip of cards, and you just never know what else they've got going. I mean, a Tamatoa is a disaster off the top. Even the Dragon that we know that they have can be really brutal, taking out the Tinkerbell, and then we just are, you know, facing this very large character with no real board ourselves. They can clean up basically everything. If they do grab your swords first, they can then attack the Flaversham with Tinkerbell, and then take out the Medusa and just wipe the whole board. So we can challenge, use the trigger to clear up the board. Oh, there's another Grammatal, that's right off the screen. But they can still take out everything else, and then the Tinkerbell's still safe from getting removed here. But that's going to be most of their turn, pretty much because they don't have any other Inkables. But it does look like their hand is Aerial, Dime, and Grab Your Swords, so that can be a really scary clock. We did have exactly 8, so we inked to go to 9. We played the Dragon, we did take out the Tinkerbell like we thought might be the line, and now they just have nothing in play versus our Dragon and our Grammatala. I don't know if the Aerial Dime is going to be fast enough, though it is 5 lore per turn. We would almost need another big thing, which they did draw a crab. That might be enough to race. It'll be pretty close.
This is turning out to be an interesting game with the draws that we just saw from Josh. This is
it can be pretty close, I think.
This is not out of the woods yet.
Aerial is a very, very powerful card and can allow you to kind of close the game real fast, and the ward makes it very challenging to deal with. Medusa's not an answer. The big Sisu, not an answer. It's basically be prepared or bust in order to actually deal with the Aerial before it's able to quest. Now, the Dragon can actually sing Be Prepared, which we do have a copy of in hand. I don't hate the idea of singing Be Prepared here, playing Tamatoa, and then setting ourselves up to the point where we now have this Crab plus Dime that can just close out the game in a couple of turns.
Yeah, I think that was a lot cleaner of a line, because you then take away any opportunity that Josh had to try to make a way into the game using the Aerial by singing that Be Prepared, which you don't get to see sung too often, but that Maleficent able to do it well.
The fact that we have so many items in hand, too, because we had the Vital Sphere as well, we get the Popsicle back. Now all of a sudden, we're threatening potentially lethal if we have a Dime in hand already. Which I don't think that we have, but we do have some other items.
Yeah, another Vital Sphere right there.
Yeah.
Your questing count, at least with Tamatoa, goes up pretty high. I think a big Sisu is his second card in hand.
Yeah, and I think this is where not using the whole new world with the aerial earlier is going to maybe cost us, because our hand is just whole new worlds and dimes. We're gonna run out the crab, but I don't know if the crab on its own is enough, even with the dime, to be able to race a crab from the other side. You know, we're looking at lore counts of 10 versus 0. You know, the crab who's already on 10 is in a much better spot, and we're questing for 5 here.
Yeah, that's a ton.
We're questing for 5, and we're drawing a card likely with the popsicle here. And if it's dime off the top, the game's just over.
Able to draw with another
It's not dime. It's okay. I would assume if we have another character, we may just run it out. Just to give us a different source of damage in case the Tamatoa gets removed. Sorry, another source of lore gain. I think there's a a big Sisu. I might be compelled to play that.
A Pirate's Life.
Okay, so now that we have since we have the Pirate's Life, I would absolutely play out the Sisu.
I think he saw the line of Pirate's Life and just thought, gain lore, I want to gain.
Because in this spot, if we Sisu, then the Pirate's Life is just also lethal.
Mm-hmm.
So we have two different lethals in this spot.
No, I like that play. It's more patient. It's better. You're representing threats on the board they have to deal with while still having that Pirate's Life in hand to play that you know is going to hit.
So on this board, we have Sisu, who is lethal, because it puts us up to 18. We have 2 gain in hand. And we also have the Tamatoa, which is questing for 5, which is also lethal. So I think this is it. There is no real outs for Sapphire Steel to be able to deal with both of these cards. And they may not even be able to deal with the Tamatoa. Like, that already is maybe problematic. I don't see, in hand at least, an answer to that just yet. We get to look at 5 cards, which is a lot of cards. They all are textless. We probably take, maybe the Popsicle for a redraw?
I'm trying to think of Sapphire Steel's outs right here, and I just can't think of too many.
I don't believe that our opponent has drawn so many cards that we can whole new world them out of this game either. So I suspect that this game is over in favor of blue-red. Sail the Azurite Sea. We've found another Popsicle. We can play another Popsicle.
Goodness, you think if Dime was out even earlier in this game for Josh, that if he would have had maybe one activation before this, but that's going to be it. I don't see.
Alright, so we lose the Pirate's Life, but it does not matter because there is no answer to the Tamatoa here. So John showed the Pirate's Life, showing that we would have needed to answer both cards, and drawing 7 is just not going to do that, so...
That's Dragon taking our round 4 on game 3. Congratulations to Dragon piloting a Ruby Sapphire list against Josh. Let's head on over to match 2 here. Our pro player who was picked by the community, Kindle, aka No I'm Not, it looks like went to 19 and 20, won it in 2 against Justin, won that game 2-0 in round 4. Congratulations to No I'm Not. Again, we didn't get to see the end of that game there for No I'm Not, but he is our community pro for 20 Lore Pro as voted by the community. So all of his matches are being recorded. They are going to be available for you to watch over on YouTube later on this week. So make sure that you tune in to the 20 Lore Pro YouTube. Those will be there for you to watch. And again, thank y'all for joining us here today. We want to thank Charlie's Collectible Show here in Stone Mountain, Georgia for hosting today's Lorcana tournament. It was an 8K, but there's been enough players that they've now changed this into a 10K tournament. What did you think today about round 4, watching Josh versus Dragon?
You know, play draw again came up. That was pretty important. I do think that the aerials looked very powerful. I'm not 100% sure if the line to be a little bit more conservative with the whole new world was ideal. It may not have mattered at all. Given that the follow-up turn, I mean, we ended up ramping, another 2 or 3 with several cards. I mean, the multiple spells per turn is where you need to get in those matchups to really get ahead. And the blue-red player being on the play in Game 3 was already doing that before we even got to the point of being able to play any of our whole new worlds, any of our draw card. It was pretty rough. The curve of one drop item into one of the ramp spells, skipping your 3-drop and going straight to Flaversham is really insurmountable sometimes, because they just have so many resources to work with. Kind of got buried a little bit.
It's hard, I think, a lot of times to find the right timing to play whole new world in those types of matchups, because they're sometimes inking just as fast as you are, trying to ramp up, and in both these matchups, both these color pairings, you're giving each other the opportunity to play huge game-changing characters, and it's tough to know when, as we saw with Josh in that case on Game 3.
Yeah, a lot of times you got to try and race to get enough lore to be able to close out with a quick dime or an unanswered aerial plus a dime. And if you're at 0 and they're not, it's a much harder battle to try and come back. Gaining 20 in a turn is much harder than gaining 10. 10 is a reasonable number.
Right.
Seems like it shouldn't be, but 10 is a very reasonable number to gain in those decks. 20 is a bit more difficult. And being able to sing the Be Prepared and develop another threat, it really was that was the nail in the coffin there. So I do think that it's a pretty rough matchup for Sapphire Steel. I think it's probably one of their worst matchups overall, because the decks are both trying to do a very similar thing, which is just put a little bit more resources into the Inkwell directly. And I think that once you get to the end of it, the Ruby cards are just bigger and better once you get there. A little less mid-rangey, a little more sort of end-game type of bombs. So a tough matchup overall, but still very in it at X and 1. So we'll likely see them again.
No, it was great to watch them. Congratulations to Josh and to Dragon for taking the round. That was a great round 4 to watch. Really excited to be here for Charlie's Collectible Show's Lorcana 10K now. We're going to be taking a quick break. We will be back for round 5. Again, we have all of this streamed in multiple languages. We have Chinese currently, we have French and German. We have all of those links in the description if you'd like to watch those in those languages for you right now. We want to thank again Charlie for hosting today's tournament, and for all the competitors who came out here today to Stone Mountain, Georgia. Thank y'all at Twitch, on YouTube, wherever you may be watching at home. Thank y'all for joining us here today for today's tournament. We will be back in just a little bit, and thank y'all again. We hope that y'all have an amazing time.